So basically, we are partners with Microsoft Dynamics, and we have built a vertical called NAVBUILD, which is built on top of Dynamics Navigation, which is a business enterprise application from Microsoft. And for today's agenda, we will be focusing more on NAVBUILD, which is a vertical specifically built for interior and fit-out industry like yours. So what we have as a solution is already developed, already it's ready-made for any project-centric businesses. So moving further, probably, this is a vertical which we have developed, and again, it is a solution which has been certified by Microsoft for the coding and the technical standards behind the application. And as I said before, this solution is not just for the interior fit out, it is for all other different project-centric businesses like MEP contractors, pre-engineered buildings, and industrial automation companies, so on and so forth. As in focusing more on interior fit out today. So this is a high level process which you could find within the solution itself. So basically we can have multiple team members like what we have here, as in QS, projects, team, purchase and stores, and of course somebody who will manage the inventory, and manufacturing if you have a assembly process part of your business at the moment. And last but not least, this being an ERP as in an account ERP application, accounting and finance forms the core of this application, around which we have all these functionalities or all these teams will work around. And on a high level business process, this is what we typically encounter when we talk about an interior fit out company. So we typically get an inquiry from the customer, and the customer would give us a detailed BOQ of what needs to be done. Say, for example, we will be able to arrive at the cost estimation for a given inquiry from a customer. So against that, we will be able to add up margins on overheads or handling charges or PF and DSI charges, so on and so forth. And then we say this is the price which we are going to bid for this particular inquiry. And eventually what happens is there will be a negotiation with the customer, there will be change in BOQ line items or rate card line items, or even the cost parameter would change, because initially customer would have asked for a generic brand of material, let's say for example plywood to be used, but later during the tendering process customer would have asked for a very specific brand. So in such cases, the rates will vary, and at the same time, the line item or rate card itself will vary based on the item that we choose. So once the once the changes happen, or I would precisely call it as negotiation, once that is over, let's assume that the contract will be awarded. So against the contract, a budget will be prepared, a project budget will be defined in the system. And definitely, once the budgeting is done, the scheduling aspect of the project is required, because we will have to define which activity has to happen when, on basically providing the start date and end date for a given BOQ. So against the schedule is prepared, that's when the planning comes in picture, wherein we start with the indent or requisition mechanism for both work orders and the material request. So once a material request has been created, then the procurement team comes in picture, wherein they can send multiple RFQs to various vendors and receive multiple quotations, carry out quotation comparison, and eventually release a purchase order. Or in case of a subcontracted scenario, the process remains the same. Instead of a purchase order, there will be a work order in place. So pretty much after which would be a standard process wherein the material will be received. We call it as goods received note. And once the material is received, there will be a stock transfer between the subcontractor and the site people. So that is being taken care of in the system, and eventually a reconciliation of what is the budgeted quantity for this given project, what is the stock at site, how many quantities that subcontractor has, and eventually the consumption, how much quantity has been actually consumed. So that is being carried out. On the other hand, whenever there is a subcontractor involved, as I said before, a work order will come into picture, and once a work order is released, then the subcontractor bills or running bills must be managed within the application. So whatever we certify as in the subcontractor measurements or running bills, against that the accounts and finance has to validate whenever they receive the subcontractor invoice for the services we have availed. So once the subcontractor invoices and the material supplier invoices reaches the once it is received, that's when the accounts payable or AP is booked. And once the AP is booked, from there on it is a standard accounting process. So this is on a side of vendor management, procurement, and planning. And moving further, how do we happen to, we have to carry out the with the customer. So we have the customer measurement book. We have to generate a draft invoice, and once a customer approves the generated draft invoice along with the annexure report and the measurement sheet, that's when the final tax invoice will get generated. So once a tax invoice is generated, we call it as an AR booking, which is accounts receivable. As I said before, from there on, a normal accounting of bank receipt and bank payment will be taken care. All right. And as we have mentioned, we are pretty much aware that being an interior company, that typically wherever or based out of our experience, we have noticed there will be two legal entities which will get involved. Company A will do the contracting, and company B would carry out the manufacturing or assembly process. For example, company A would receive the BOQ from let's say an IT company in Gurgaon or some IT park somewhere in a bigger city, wherein in the BOQ there will be a requirement of supply of 100 chairs. All right. So this will be received by the company A, whereas the fulfillment of the order will be outsourced to company B, who will procure or who will assemble the chairs or conference room tables or any other assembly process items will be supplied by company B. So the point that we are trying to make here is, first company can carry out contracting, and the second company can carry out manufacturing or assembly process, and all these things can be taken care in the single system itself. And these are the high-level solution offerings of what we are going to offer in the in NAVBUILD. So initially, managing your estimation, tracking your project, managing your project budgeting, subcontractor management. So these are the very specific in the industry functionalities that we actually have. Having said that, the application is also available on browser and a mobile app as well. It is all for free, but we will have to make sure that the mobile device is authenticated with the server. So once that security is being established, then any person can access the application from any mobile device. When I say mobile device, it could be an iPhone or an iOS platform or an Android platform or even Microsoft platform for that case. And we also have extensions with vendor portal, which is nothing but, let's say the moment we release a purchase order, a system, there is an extension to the application. We call it as a vendor portal, wherein every vendor will be given a unique username and password, and they will be able to see the transactions which happens only for them. So that is being taken care. And there are other peripherals like approvals and notifications in order to execute the control that is being required for a given project. And we also have a Primavera or Microsoft project integration for scheduling of the project. And last but not least, we also have a timesheet application which will help you to capture the actual resource cost when it comes to executing of projects. And pretty much a business in your interior fit out will definitely have a pan-India spread out, wherein there could be multiple offices within India. Say, for example, one could be in Chennai, one could be in Bangalore, one could be in Bombay, and the execution should happen all across the various locations. that is also available in the application. And as in a standard product, system can handle multiple foreign currencies as well. And last but not least, this being a strong accounting application, it is also compliant with Indian statutories, which is nothing but GST and the TDS per se. So system is 100% compliant with the Indian statutory is what we can commit with the solution. And probably these are the benefits that you would experience probably when we say you start using the application, and these are the value propositions that we are actually offering. So I think maybe it's time for me to take you to the actual product itself. So before we get into the product, so in case if anybody has any questions, please feel free to leave us a message. Either myself or my colleague, Mr. Prakash, either one of them will answer the question, and you can leave that message anytime you want. And I think Prakash can put across the question to myself, or maybe he can answer it by himself. Okay. So in case if I go too fast, please leave a message, as I said, so that I can slow down a bit. Okay. So next I will take you to the actual product itself. All right. So this is the application that we are talking about. So the application, the version that you're looking at is basically the desktop or a laptop or a laptop client. So similar way, there is a web application as well, which is nothing but, let's say I'm opening up a Google Chrome and I'm saying I would like to access this particular application through a browser. So provided we have a username and password given for this particular user, then you will be able to access the application as well. So this is how it looks like when you open it in a browser. So I have given my username and password, and I will be able to access the application. So the point that we are trying to say is, as long as you have a decent internet connection, you should be able to access the application here. So here what you're looking at is basically the similar application, the same application from a different interface. The second thing is, as I said, there is also a mobile app which is for free, and pretty much similar way we will have to give you a unique password and username and password. You will be able to log in. So this is on to the accessing to the application. And moving further, we have something called as roles. Say for example, you are looking at the application from a project manager or a projects team. So for a projects team, you can very well notice what are the list of activities that you can actually see. Maybe I can start off with the QS team. So let's say this is the QS team, what they pretty much do. They carry out estimation, they have the rate card in place, they have the projects which needs to be tracked in order to update the customer measurement book, and they also have the work orders which they have to certify. So that's it. So they may not have access to any other transactions within the application. And here on reports, what are the reports which are available for that particular team? Similar way, when I take into the projects, so you will have a different set of records here. So here you can see how many projects are there in planning phase, how many projects are there in execution phase. And here you can also see the number of documents which are pending for approval. So that is also being taken care. And moving on, we also have a site user access, which is the person who is going to be there at the project site. So typically they will raise purchase requisition, they will carry out goods receipt note against the purchase order which has been released by the procurement team, and they also provide materials to subcontractor, and they also collect subcontractor materials that are being returned from a subcontractor. So precisely this is what they can do within the application. And similar way, we also have the procurement team dashboard. So what we are saying here is, based on the role that an individual is performing within an organization, we will be able to restrict who has to see what. So I gave an example of 5 different types of roles which is being taken care in the application, and you also have the the last profile, which is pretty much on accounts and finance. So you have under accounts and finance, you have the typical transactions which needs to be taken care in picture. So moving on with the QS team. Before we get into the QS, I would like to talk about the data which we collect from the customers. So this is how a BOQ looks like. So this is a sample BOQ, which we will, I'm just trying to give an example here. So this BOQ will have details of a main BOQ, which will carry all the drawings here, all the, say here you have interior civil work, demolition, basically all the details of the BOQ. So I'm pretty much sure you will receive a BOQ from the customer in a similar format like this. So what we can do is we will be able to move this data to the application. What we will do is maybe we will give you a template like this. So in this template, we would expect the customer BOQ number to be put on column A. Column B is custom BOQ number, additional number if you have. And the description is the technical description of the BOQ. And you also have the quantity of the BOQ and the unit of measure. Provided the data is uploaded in this format, systems will be able to import the BOQ. So that is the provision which we actually have. So I can say BOQ import, and I can say which project I would like to do, and let's say for example, and I will be able to locate the file and then import it. So this is how the BOQ which we have in the in the format of Excel can be imported. So I would like to showcase the sample BOQ which we have already imported. So here you can see, so here we have the civil and interior works and the technical description and whatever quantity and measurements, so on and so forth. So we do not restrict on the technical jargons. It can be in number of text. That's not a problem. So similar way, I can show you some other example on the tree structure which is possible within the application. So with this project, there is a work of civil and interior works, and the civil and interior only, and the modular drilling, demountable, blinds, and white coats. So how did I import? Is basically on all these are Excel sheets. So main BOQ is here, grid ceiling is here, demountable is here, blinds and white coats. So here you can see. So I've just filtered for the groupings only, so I'm able to see it this way. So if I remove the grouping, I can see the entire BOQ here. As I said, there is no restriction on number of texts. So here is an example of what you're looking at. So it says the rates quoted shall be inclusive of all. Basically, it is going more than a number of characters, but still the system is able to store the record. So prior to any mass production of the procurement and the client architect, or basically the description is completely captured in the system. So this is my first touch point. So wherein we have the customer BOQ and we prepare an estimate for it, for which the BOQ must be imported. So now the BOQ has been imported here. Then moving forward, for every BOQ, there is something called as a rate card here. I can show you an example. So here we have a rate card. It says for demolishing work, I have to carry out 30 square feet is what my BOQ says. So what we would have done here is under particular rate card, I can take a sample example of aluminum partition. So here the rate card says the aluminum partition carrying out 1 square feet will incur a cost of 285. So how did I arrive at the 285 cost? Is basically a combination of material and manpower. So here I can see the list of items which are needed for executing this particular BOQ activity, which is aluminum partition. So pretty much you can provide the dimensions here on length, breadth and height, and what is the original quantity here. And you can also provide wastage quantity, which will typically be the case of glasses. So glasses probably where we will have to, there will be a wastage at the time of commissioning or installation process, but still when we are doing the costing, we will have to take those things into picture. So considering that, we arrive at the net quantity. And the cost system, what system does is, based on the pre-history of purchases which we have made, system would automatically populate the last purchased value, and still it will allow you to override the cost, either increasing or decreased value you can provide. And then last but not least, we arrive at the total cost. So the summation of all these will give my 285. So this is how system arrives at the costing, which is nothing but, for executing 1 cubic feet of aluminum partition, my cost is this. So in my rate card breakup, I also have the quantity, item, and labor, material, and manpower, all the three combinations along with the quantity and cost. So this definition is being made in the system. So whereas in this case, I have the cost factor of 1 square feet, but my BOQ expects is for 30 square feet. So what happens is, I will have to attach the rate card here, and the moment we attach the rate card, system automatically does the multiplication here. So here you can see, okay, this is my quantity required for this BOQ line with the breakup of material and manpower. So the system has calculated the total cost and total cost here. So similar way I will have to do for all the BOQ lines. So once this is done, system will be able to carry out the actual estimation. So just give me a minute. So coming back, let's take this example of what is my overall cost of this project. So here you can see the overall cost of this project is this, right? So why, how do the system arrive at the price is basically on various parameters which must be considered for material and manpower. So here we have the material. I should add a margin of 5%, 3%, and 10%. And last but not least, for the labors, 6.5, 15, and 3. So based on this, percentage values, the system will be able to arrive at the estimated price, which is my selling price to my customer. So that is being taken care in the system. So this is how the estimation happens. So here you can see a sample example of how estimation is being carried out. So here you can see the total quantity is 30, my unit cost is 285, my total cost is so and so value. So this is how system does the computation for all the BOQ lines here. And pretty much what happens is, there will be revisions, or there will be negotiations with the customer. So whenever we make changes to the BOQ, wherein the BOQ increase or decrease in quantity, increase or decrease in BOQ lines, or change in rate card, or change in rates of individual materials and labor. So these are the possible changes which can incur. So whenever you make changes, make sure you are doing a revision, or we call it as versions. Once the versions are updated, then in system it is possible for you to take a version comparison report as well. So here I'm going to compare the first version of this particular project against the second version or third version or whatever we have. So here we can see I have the current version and I have the older version as well. So maybe we can take an example of, so here you can see, so this is my original current version of this is my cost is 8850, whereas my selling price is this. Whereas with the older version, my BOQ quantity remains the same, which is 30, and there was some changes. So the difference here is 2.5 or 2500 is what we are talking about here. So any report that you see can be taken to Excel, Word, or PDF. So that is also a standard feature which is available across all the applications here. So let's say after all these negotiations, let's assume that the customer has awarded the project or awarded the contract. The moment we say create job, the entire BOQ, whatever we have prepared, it will get converted to an actual project. Let's say that is when the projects team will come in picture. So the projects team will also have the BOQ, which is pretty much the same way. So here we can see the tree structure that I'm talking about. So yeah, so we have the BOQ number, we have the details, whatever estimates that we have prepared. So you have all the details here. So pretty much what we did earlier is what we have it here. So even at this time, if you want to have a budgeting to be made, yes, the process remains same, because go and change the rate card and it will be taken care for this particular project in order to arrive at the budget. One thing which I forgot to tell you is, at the time of estimation or at the time of budgeting, if you would require approval to be configured in the application, yes, that is very much available. Which means I prepare an estimate and I give it to Prakash, who is my manager, for example, and he has to approve. So unless he is approving the estimate, it cannot proceed further. So these sort of controls can be exerted within the application. And similar way for budgeting process. Once the project budget is being prepared by the projects team, that is when it is subjected to an approval here. So, but the budgeting is also taken care within the application itself. And then comes the scheduling part. And so with respect to the project scheduling, what we have done here is, we have done a close integration with Microsoft project. So I have opened the Microsoft project and select navigation to Microsoft project, which means take the data from ERP and push it to Microsoft project. And once it is selected, so this is where I was talking about earlier, wherein a system can have multiple companies. So I select which company I wanted to work with, and then I have to select which project that I would like to import it. So the moment I say import, system will take the BOQ lines from the application and it gets auto-populated here. I understand the BOQ that you're looking at is a civil BOQ. I completely agree, but it's a demonstration which we are trying to make sure to establish that the integration is possible for scheduling activity here. And what happens now is, I can change the dates here and there. I can play around with the scheduling of typically what we do. And once it is done, I can push the data back to ERP again. So I can save the project, and maybe once these changes are reflected in navigation, then probably that is where the scheduling is also complete. Okay. Then what happens is, on project, the process of procurement comes in picture. So under procurement, this is the process that we have. I'm not going to go deeper into the item master, vendor master, customer master. Let's assume all these masters are ready as per the system requirements, that is being prepared in the or updated in the system. Then let's assume that those masters are readily available in the application. The process starts with purchase requisition, which is nothing but purchase indent is when we can start the indentation process. So against the particular project, I will have to select which project I would like to raise an indent for, and let's say get source line, which is nothing but, the moment I say get source line, system will show me the entire BOQ. So against that, my BOQ says 8340. Against those details, we have to say how many quantity I would like to raise an indent for. So it can be for 100, 200, whatever requisition that you would like to raise. So once an indent is raised, system auto-populates the materials here. So here you can see it is showing in red color because we are exceeding the budget, and you can also see the measurements which has been provided in the rate card is also used here for length, breadth and height, and the quantity is populated based on the quantity that we enter against the BOQ. So precisely, so you have all the details here, and you can also specify, which means the site team can also specify or intimate purchase that when we would we would expect this material to be in place. So that is what we call it as an expected date here. And other than that, you also have provision for remarks for any technical description that you actually have. So in a case of exceeding the budget, that is where we have the approval mechanism in place, which you can see on top. So when I say approval mechanism, as I said, for the estimation and project budgeting, you can define the sequence based on the project requirements that you actually operate. So to the right hand side, the system also gives you the details of what is the budgeted quantity for this particular item, how many quantity has not been approved, how many is approved, and what is there at the current stock. So the moment I move the cursor to the next items, so here you can see the list of what is the updated budgeted quantities that we actually have. So here you can see the gypsum board required is 8340, approved is 500, and all those 500 has been received and it is there on project site. Unapproved, which means already I have raised an indent for 2162 as an indent quantity, but I have not got approval. So because of that, the system says the balance value is this, and few other quantities which is also already there on site, which is they have ordered for 500 and the 500 has been received, and those received is there at the project site. So this is the level of proactiveness that system can give you. And again, please keep in mind it is still in the requisition phase. We are not in the execution phase or as in the purchase order. So based on these decisions, we will be able to make effective or informed decisions on how to execute the project. So once the purchase requisition is made, that is when the procurement team comes in picture, wherein they will be able to have multiple choices like what you're seeing right now. So here I can either say purchase, or I can say production, or even I can transfer. When I say purchase, it is nothing but sometimes there will be a scenario wherein there is a rate contract which is involved with your subcontractor or supplier in this case. So you can directly release a purchase order for this particular item. Whereas if it is a production, which is nothing but in the case of an in-house assembly or manufacturing production capability, if you have so, maybe you can release a production order against which the actual assembly or production can be taken care of. The third option would be transfer order. There is nothing but the site or the project material or inventory is available at various different locations, and based on project approval obtaining from very specific individual project managers, you will be able to do the transfer order. And last but not least, which will be the longest process, wherein I will have to say request for quote or collect a quotation from the supplier and then do the quotation comparison, because my company process as a policy, it says more than 3 quotations is mandatory before releasing a purchase order. So that is also needed. So it is up to the procurement team on what they have to do. So once this process is defined, that is where the quotation comparison comes in picture. So at this time, I would like to showcase the vendor portal as well. This is again an extension to what we are saying. So if you prepare a request for quotation in ERP application, you will be able to, let's say we have logged in as a supplier, and he will be able to receive the list of RFQs like what we are seeing here. Against this RFQs, I will be able to, as in a vendor, I can provide the details of the rates, the terms and conditions, things like this. So I can provide the rates here, I can provide the details here, and I can also say my terms and conditions here. So these these details are provided. So which means the supplier is preparing a quote. The moment he provides all these details, system will again have the quotations which is populated within the application here. So here you can see list of all the quotation across various projects that we actually have in the application. So what as in a procurement team can do is, I will simply have to do a quotation comparison on who has to whom I should release a purchase order for. So I have to do the quotation comparison here. So in this example, you can see there is one item which is common for both the suppliers, and you can see what is the cost that they are bidding for. So one vendor has provided me 55 and other vendor has provided me 65. So this is how the rates are being taken care. If you want the taxations to be included in this, yes, it is very much possible. And in case if there are multiple delivery terms or any terms and conditions to be populated, that can also be managed. But one thing we should keep in mind, system does the comparison only. It doesn't recommend you should go with vendor A or vendor B. Reason is system is not capturing the technical details of these items. So that is one constraint that we will have to live with it. But having said that, we have all necessary data in order to take any decisions here. So that's where the human decision making process comes in picture, and we can release a purchase order based on the approvals that we actually get from the purchase manager. So here, let's say for example, in this case of 110 quantity, I can release partial quantity to both the suppliers. So which means I can give 50 quantity to supplier A and 60 quantity to supplier B. So that provision is also available in the application. Once a purchase order is prepared, system will allow you to prepare the purchase order, make sure the terms and conditions are populated, and you can define the list of items that is needed here. So as I said, for a purchase order to get released, you can actually say approval mechanism is required. So based on the approval mechanism, it is also possible for you to allow the procurement team to share the purchase order with the supplier. So here you can see, I mean, this is a sample format again. So this is a sample format which we have made it in the system. If you want to change it as per your requirement, yes, that is very much possible. So here you can see what is a list of items, what is the quantity, what is the rates, and what is the total value that you're looking at. I understand it is showing you the value of older VAT or statutory combination, but not a problem. As I said before, it is still compliant with GST, so we can have it in picture. This is the old database, and you can also see a watermark which says approved, which means in case if somebody is trying to release a purchase order without getting an approval, system will still showcase the purchase order as draft. It may not show an approval. So obviously the subcontractor can, supplier can reject this particular PO, and you can also track the ISO details, the signature, so on and so forth. But this is again a sample purchase order. So once a purchase order is released, that is, it is mandatory for the projects team to track what happened to my project requirements. So what a project team can actually do is they have something called as a material tracker report, which is on what is the status of all my materials for a given project. So here I have done, we have something called as a purchase monitoring report, which will tell you for a given project how many purchase orders has been released for a given vendor, and what items here, whether we have
Vidya, we lost you, I guess. Vidya, can you hear us? Just a second. I'm just checking Vidya on the connectivity side. Looks like we lost him on the connectivity. Okay, then go ahead. Okay, fine. Okay, then go ahead. Okay.